The global food industry is an $11 trillion physical machine. We mass produce, process, and ship agricultural commodities across oceans with exact mechanical precision. Yet the underlying data architecture tracking those physical goods remains surprisingly primitive. Across the global food system, 40% of all food produced never reaches a human mouth. This loss is rarely the result of physical spoilage in transit. It stems from profound data inefficiencies. Handoffs between suppliers, processors, and retailers are opaque, leading to misplaced inventory and degraded quality because the actors involved lose track of the product. Critical tracking information regarding origin, quality traits, and custody is overwhelmingly stored in siloed Excel spreadsheets. These static documents fail to communicate with the databases of the next link in the supply chain. This analog system creates a compounding liability. When a crisis hits, like a foodborne contamination in dairy or an outbreak of supplier fraud, agribusinesses often cannot locate their physical stock because they lack a unified view of their inventory. The global pandemic exposed the fragility of this structure. Even so, the industry has been slow to adopt standard enterprise resource planning, or ERP, systems. An ERP is a centralized Web 2 software suite managing day-to-day business activities and supply chain operations. Data interoperability remains a structural friction that legacy, siloed technology cannot resolve. Governments in Europe, the US, and Asia are now implementing strict legal mandates that demand end-to-end supply chain transparency, effectively outlining vague environmental and ethical claims. The most prominent example is the EUDR, or the European Union Deforestation Regulation. This legal framework requires companies to definitively prove their imported commodities were not grown on recently deforested land. Traditional Web 2 ERP systems fail under this specific pressure. Because an ERP is a centralized, internal database controlled by a single company, it cannot provide mathematically verifiable proof of its data to external government regulators or other parties in the supply chain. Architecting a neutral trust layer on a decentralized public network like Cardano allows companies to prove the integrity and exact timestamp of their records to anyone auditing the chain. This creates a steep technical friction. We are applying the rigid compliance requirements of modern regulators to the analog reality of smallholder farming, where over half the world's food originates on plots of land smaller than a single acre. Engineering this system means mapping a physically fragmented, chaotic agricultural commodity onto a rigid, deterministic cryptographic ledger. The ultimate output of this architecture reaches the consumer through a GS1 QR code, a new standardized digital link that will soon replace traditional retail barcodes on consumer packaging worldwide. Scanning the passport reveals a hybrid model, dividing general information and cryptographic proof into two pipelines. First, storytelling data, marketing copy routing to Web 2 servers. This stays off-chain, avoiding fees for low-risk data. The second stream handles validated claims, legally binding assertions like zero deforestation status. Only these critical compliance metrics require the architectural weight, immutability, and security of a Layer 1 blockchain. An economically viable Web3 supply chain isolates trust-critical compliance data from lower-value marketing noise, processing only the former through cryptographic consensus. There is a strict limitation to blockchain mechanics. The ledger makes data immutable, but it does not evaluate whether the initial input was actually true. Because the blockchain cannot independently verify physical events, the validation of a claim must occur entirely off-chain before it ever touches the network.
The loop begins when a smallholder farm submits physical plot coordinates, claiming their specific parcel of land is deforestation-free. That claim is intercepted by third-party auditing nodes, specialized external validators who cross-reference the submitted coordinates against active satellite imagery to confirm the environmental status. Once proven, the validated claim is formatted into a standardized JSON payload. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, a lightweight text-based format widely used for storing and transporting data structures. In a decentralized supply chain, the objective truth is generated off-chain by specialized auditors, and then permanently preserved on-chain by the network protocol. One major blocker prevents large agribusinesses from adopting Web3 tracking: the risk of exposing proprietary trade secrets on a public, permissionless ledger. Supply chains run on sensitive intel. Companies cannot expose exclusive supplier locations or reveal proprietary fish feed ratios. The solution is cryptographic hashing, mapping data into a unique string. Sensitive JSON payloads stay locked in private off-chain databases. Only the resulting hash is publicly injected into a Cardano transaction. Auditors verify by hashing the private data to match the on-chain metadata. If a supplier altered even a single comma in their private database to hide fraudulent activity, the resulting hash would change entirely, instantly flagging the tampering to the auditor. Hashing resolves the transparency paradox. It offers indisputable public proof of a product's compliance history without leaking corporate intelligence to competitors. Translating billions of individual agricultural items into discrete state changes on the ledger creates a physical scaling problem. Global commodities move in massive, unstructured volumes. A major processor might process thousands of tomatoes a minute, blending outputs from dozens of different farms. Layer 1 blockchains require financial fees for every transaction. Generating an on-chain transaction for every single tomato is economically unviable for low-margin commodities. To maintain profitability, data is instead aggregated and tracked at the batch or SKU level, creating a single, affordable fee. Transactions are triggered only when high-value state changes occur. The system writes to the blockchain only when physical custody changes hands or when a new, validated compliance claim is attached to the batch. Designing for Web3 in the physical world requires balancing the desire for absolute cryptographic granularity against the hard financial constraints of Layer 1 transaction fees. The completed architecture replaces fragile, siloed Web2 Excel databases with a continuous layer of cryptographic proofs. This neutral trust layer satisfies EU compliance mandates while changing how trust operates between competing corporations. The data is no longer based on a brand's promise, it is based on math. A reliable physical data layer enables programmable supply chain finance. Because the physical goods are now tokenized as verified batches on Cardano, a logged change in physical custody can automatically trigger a smart contract. A smart contract is a self-executing program stored on the blockchain that automatically runs when predetermined conditions are met. This automation executes payouts instantly, routing capital directly to the originating smallholder farmer and removing the payment delays and liquidity traps that currently cripple the lowest levels of agricultural production. The Web3 product passport documents the history of our food and provides the mathematical foundation to instantly finance the global supply chain.